discovered my husband's affair and my stepdaughter's complicity, used her college fund for myself, filed for divorce, and now they're pleading for reconciliation. Hi, Reddit. I need your help right now because I'm in a very bad situation with my stepdaughter, and I have no idea what to do. For context, I, a 42-year-old female, have been with my soon to be ex husband, David, a 44-year-old male, for 15 years. Out of those 15 years, we have been married for 10. I have loved him more than anyone else in this world. He also has a daughter, Stacy, a 17-year-old female, from a previous relationship. He and Stacy's mother were never married. They had only had a brief fling for a couple of months before she became pregnant. She decided to keep the baby, but they had broken up just a couple of weeks before she realized she was pregnant. They decided to maintain a cordial relationship to co-parent without any lingering feelings. Unfortunately, Stacy's mother passed away in a car accident when Stacy was just 6 months old. After that, it was just David and his daughter. At the start of our relationship, David told me he was not only looking for a wife, but also for someone who would be a good mother to Stacy. I was up for it because I loved kids, and Stacy was very young at the time, just 2 years old. I didn't care that he had a daughter. I was ready to accept her as my own and raise her accordingly. From the beginning, I was very serious about our relationship, and after 5 years of dating, we decided to get married. Our life had its ups and downs, but at the end of the day, I always believed that he loved me just as much as I loved him. I had no reason to suspect he was cheating on me. Even a couple of months ago, we talked about celebrating our 10th wedding anniversary with a family trip to an exotic location, and he seemed genuinely excited about it. People who cheat on their spouses don't usually act that excited about a family trip, so I didn't see this coming. About 6 days ago, I found out he had been cheating on me for the past 7 months with his coworker. I was at work when I received an email from this coworker detailing their affair. The email included proof, text conversations, phone calls, and pictures of them together at places on days David had said he was away on business trips, but were actually romantic getaways with his affair partner. I was shocked and went home immediately, not knowing what to do. Nobody was home at the time. Stacy was out with a friend, and David was at work. I took the opportunity to reread the email carefully to avoid a breakdown at work. I noticed she had also included her phone number if I wanted to speak to her. She explained that she was coming clean because she knew I deserved to know the truth and felt guilty about the affair. She said David had promised her he would tell me the truth and end our marriage to be with her, but after almost 3 months, he still hadn't done so. She decided to take matters into her own hands and tell me herself. After reading the email, I decided to think about it for a while and then called her. I was still in denial and hoped speaking with her might confirm that this was not a prank. When I spoke to her, she started by apologizing and said she hadn't intended to ruin my marriage. She had fallen in love with David. She then explained how the affair had started, how long it had been going on, and all the promises David had made to her, which were the same promises he made to me at the beginning of our relationship. My heart broke more with every word, and by the end of the conversation, I was convinced nothing could be more heartbreaking. But then she told me that Stacy had known about the affair all along and had been helping David cover his tracks. This shattered me completely because I had always considered myself Stacy's mother and never thought of her as just a stepdaughter. I had known her since she was 2 years old and had raised her as my own. Knowing that she had also betrayed me felt like the end of the world. Honestly, David's coworker let me know that every time David needed to lie to me or cover up for his absences, Stacy would make up excuses and explain why he wasn't picking up his calls. In exchange for keeping quiet, David would buy her several expensive gifts. This explained a lot about recent occurrences, such as how David had been spoiling her excessively, which hadn't been the case before. I had assumed it was because he was doing well at work and wanted to buy her nice things. He had also given me a lot of jewelry and clothes, so I thought his frequent gift giving was due to his improved work situation. But I guess that wasn't the case. Finding out that Stacy had been involved in this deceit and had met her father's affair partner several times, all while keeping it a secret from me, was even more devastating than discovering David's infidelity. After that phone call, I decided to pack up my things and move out of the house because I couldn't bear to stay there and wait for them to come back. I felt deeply betrayed and couldn't stop crying. I didn't want to give David the satisfaction of seeing me like that, so I packed a few things, drove to a hotel out of town, and turned off my phone. I was extremely upset and drank myself to sleep. The next morning, I turned my phone back on to call in sick to work and saw about 1,000 unanswered texts and missed calls from David and Stacy. I had no desire to respond to any of them. I also noticed an unread text from a guy at the car dealership whom I had been talking to about buying a new car. I had been holding off on the purchase to save more money, as the car was expensive, and I had the anniversary trip and Stacy's upcoming 17th birthday to consider. I had planned to gift her a car for her birthday instead of buying one for myself. Seeing that text reminded me of my plan to give Stacy a car for her birthday, which filled me with rage. In a moment of anger, I decided to focus solely on my own happiness. The dealership had texted to ask if I was still interested in buying the car I had selected, and on impulse, I went there immediately and bought a shiny new luxury car. It was beyond my budget, but I didn't care because over the past 10 years since marrying David, I had been saving and setting aside a college fund for my stepdaughter. I had planned to give Stacy access to that account as a surprise for when she announced which college she would attend. But now, knowing what had been going on, I had no interest in surprising anyone but myself. I used money from that account to buy the luxury car and decided to drive it to our house to confront David and Stacy. When I arrived, they tried to hug me and express how worried they were, but I didn't give them a second. I immediately told them that David's coworker had contacted me and that I knew the full truth of what had been happening behind my back. I expressed how deeply disappointed I was in both of them. They looked shocked, and David had the sense to remain silent, knowing the situation was exposed. Stacy then tried to explain that she was just trying to look out for her father and was confused about what to do. She started crying, saying she loved us both equally and wanted us to be happy. I didn't believe her act at all. I thought she was old enough to understand right from wrong, and she had deliberately chosen to do the wrong thing. Besides, I was sure the gifts from her father had influenced her silence. I didn't believe a word she said and told her so. I was extremely angry and upset and announced that I was leaving David. He should have anticipated this because under these circumstances, no one would have stayed. I also told Stacy that more than David, I was disappointed in her. Chosen to do, husbands cheat all the time, and it's not the first or last time a woman will face this. But I had always expected Stacy to have my back. Even though we weren't related by blood, I never thought of her as just my stepdaughter, and had loved her as if she were my own, perhaps even more. Her lies and betrayal hurt me more than David's actions. I decided that the college fund I had set aside for her over the years was no longer something she deserved, and I would be leaving both of them behind. It wasn't easy to say this, and I almost choked up because this had been my family for 15 years. After telling Stacy, I walked out without giving them a chance to explain and returned to the hotel. They kept calling and even followed me, and I'm sure they saw the new car I bought. I drove away as quickly as I could. I wanted to block them, but couldn't bring myself to do it because emotionally I'm still struggling to process everything. For the past 5 days, they've been desperately trying to reach me, texting almost every hour and calling continuously. I've been reading their messages but haven't responded. David initially tried to get me to forgive him, but when he realized it was futile, he began expressing how sorry he was, acknowledging that I deserved better, but asking me to reconsider the impact on Stacy. He said she was just a child and didn't deserve to suffer for his mistakes. Stacy has been sending similar messages, pleading for a second chance, saying she always thought of me as her mother and was deeply sorry. I ignored them until yesterday when David texted, saying he was tired of apologizing without any response and needed to know if I planned to come back. This message angered me because he had caused the problem and had no right to take that tone. I texted him back saying I had already spoken to a lawyer and filed for divorce, which wasn't true. I was still processing everything and hadn't consulted a lawyer yet. He didn't reply for an hour, then sent a long message accusing me of being selfish and a villain for leaving Stacy behind. He said my decision to withhold the college fund had devastated her. David knew about the fund and hadn't saved up for college expenses himself, relying on it. I had mentioned the college fund several times, but I didn't know he hadn't set aside any money. David said Stacy had been planning on attending an out-of-state college, which would be more expensive, and now it was uncertain if she could go to her preferred college due to financial constraints. He felt I was being unreasonable for denying her access to the fund, even though I had saved the money with the intention of giving it to her eventually. He thought my new car purchase was evidence of my selfishness and believed I should reconsider my decision. I feel conflicted. I don't want to be the person who takes away opportunities from a child to teach a lesson or punish them, as that's not the kind of person I want to be. However, Stacy is not a child and knew what she was doing was wrong. I feel she has disappointed me, and I'm questioning whether what I'm doing is really that wrong. I'm very confused and unsure about whether it's fair to tell my stepdaughter that I won't be paying her college tuition anymore after everything that's happened. Update 1. Hey, I'm really sorry I haven't provided an update for the past 2 weeks. I've been extremely busy with work and meeting with my lawyer, so I've had a lot on my plate. But now I have some time, so I want to start by thanking everyone who commented on my original post and showed me so much love and support. It's been really heartwarming to know that people resonated with my story, and I am genuinely grateful from the bottom of my heart. Knowing that there were people supporting me, even though they were complete strangers, made it much easier to handle everything. After receiving David's text and making my post, I decided that I did not need to entertain any more of this. Most of the comments on my post advised me to block him and file for divorce as quickly as possible to finally remove him from my life. So that's exactly what I did. Within a few days, I spoke to a lawyer and filed for divorce. I also decided that I would not be giving Stacy the college fund I had been saving for her. Even if I had been her biological parent, I wouldn't have given her the money if she had helped her father cover up his cheating. She should have thought about these consequences before assisting him. You can't betray me and then expect a smile in return. Regardless of her age or who she is, that's not how this works. Furthermore, David's claim that Stacy was being punished for his actions wasn't accurate. She was being held accountable for her own actions, specifically, her failure to come clean about the affair. I made it clear when I spoke to them in person that I was refusing to give her the college fund because she had chosen not to do the right thing from the start. If they want to be angry about it, they're welcome to be. But I'm not going to engage with that. I've blocked them so they no longer have access to me. Despite their attempts to contact me through various numbers and fake accounts, I just read their messages and ignore them. Update 2. I finally received an update on the divorce proceedings, and thankfully, David is not contesting anything. I'm hopeful that we can have a peaceful and amicable divorce. It has been almost 3 weeks since I discovered his infidelity, and my life has changed significantly. I had been staying in a hotel until last week, but it was getting too expensive. Although I could afford to stay there longer, I didn't want to be wasteful. So I've moved in with a friend who graciously offered to let me stay until I find my own apartment. I've also started considering therapy for myself. My friend who is a licensed therapist recommended it, and I think it could be really beneficial in the long run. Another major change is that I've quit my job. This is a big deal for me because I've been working nonstop for over 20 years, starting right after college, and even working part-time before that. I feel like I need a break now. I have enough savings to support myself, and the money I've saved over the years will come in handy. I plan to use the next few months to realign my life and start the business I had always intended to launch. I had planned to delay this until Stacy left for college, but now I'm free to pursue it sooner. So my plan is to spend the next few months building a business model, seeking investors, and preparing everything needed for the new venture. I'm really excited about the future, even though I'm still very upset about what's happened. I've spoken to my parents about the divorce, which I hadn't done earlier because I was still processing it myself. After talking to them, I made the announcement on social media without going into details, just stating that I was getting divorced. All my close friends and family members know what's going on, and that's what matters most to me. Life has been complicated recently, but now that the divorce proceedings are about to start, and we'll be meeting with a mediator in the next few days, I'm hopeful for the future. Update 3 Keith. Hi, so David and I are scheduled to meet with the mediator tomorrow. It feels strange knowing I'll see him after almost a month of no contact. As if I wasn't already anxious enough about the meeting, just half an hour ago, Stacy sent me an email. She had stopped contacting me after 2.5 weeks, so I thought she was no longer interested in communicating. I even assumed the email would be about her college tuition. But to my surprise, it was a full apology that actually seemed genuine. She didn't mention the funds at all. Instead, she expressed deep regret for her actions, acknowledging that she'd been selfish and hadn't considered how much it would hurt me when I learned the truth. She admitted that her actions had broken my heart even more than David's betrayal, and she wasn't sure if she could ever make things right with me. But she genuinely meant it when she said she had always looked up to me as a mother and truly loved me. She also explained that all the gifts David had given her were a form of manipulation. She claimed that although his affair partner made it seem like she was giving the gifts out of her own will, it was more about David manipulating her to stay silent. She insisted that she had been confused and didn't know how to handle the situation because, on one hand, she knew her father was wrong, but on the other, she didn't want to go against him. Despite this, she was betraying me, and she felt very conflicted over the past few months. I want to believe her, but after everything that's happened, I'm not sure what to think. I'm already feeling anxious and unsettled, and reading her email only intensified these feelings. I miss her terribly, and I also miss David, but I know I need to learn to live on my own, since trusting people, even those closest to me, has proven difficult. So I'll continue with the no contact rule. Update for It's been a couple of months since my last update. The divorce will be finalized in a few weeks, and I'm finally on the verge of moving on. The negotiations were relatively straightforward. The hardest part was seeing him during those meetings. I felt a mix of anger, hurt, and immense sadness whenever I saw him. But I got through it. I've also found a new apartment and moved in. I've been living alone for the past few weeks, and it's been nice. My friends and family visit me almost every other day to make sure I'm doing okay, which I appreciate deeply. Their company helps me avoid loneliness, though I know these visits will eventually become less frequent. I'm still coming to terms with being single and am working on accepting it. I've started therapy, which will help me process everything that has happened, and I'm confident I'll be able to manage it. I've had no contact with David since the last mediation session. Although it's been challenging, it's different from how it was before. In my last update, I mentioned an email from Stacy where she claimed she had been manipulated. I couldn't bring myself to trust her at that time because everything was still too raw. However, last week I decided to respond to her emails. She had continued to send me updates about her life without mentioning the college fund, and it felt like a one-way communication where she reached out and I shut her out. Every time I read her emails, my heart broke and I cried, even though nothing sad was happening in her life. I missed her deeply, so I reached out to tell her how much I missed her. I maintained that she wouldn't be receiving the college fund, but she replied that she didn't mind and felt she didn't deserve it anyway. She decided to attend a college near home and give up on her dream college to avoid burdening her father with a student loan. Even if she had asked him to co-sign, he wouldn't have supported her. He has refused to help her, making that very clear. They will have to make do with the money they have, and he will assist her as much as he can, but she will also need to contribute and work her way through college, like most of us have. She claims to be fine with that. We have been exchanging emails, and I told her that I would love to rebuild our connection, but I need time. After everything that has happened, I simply cannot process anything right now. She understands and told me that I can take as much time as I need because she acknowledges that she has betrayed my trust. I don't know what will happen moving forward, but I'm hoping for the best. Fingers crossed.